Hi, I'm Lars. Welcome back to the workshop. Today we're marking out and drilling out and getting this thing mounted. So this is going to get marked out and drilled out. This is going to get drilled out, countersunk, and we're going to get this thing mounted on the fully mounted. Then we need to take it back off and paint it. So it's going to be a primer and then a paint job on it, 2 coats of paint. And then we'll be done. We'll just get this thing mounted and leave it on there, hopefully forever. So let's get to this. All right. Ooh. In order to put these screws in, there's got to be a washer that goes on the back of this. All right. So I can't put the screws over here because we have these 2x4s in the back. So what I did is I measured out the 3 inches, 1.5 inches a piece, like this, pulled out 3 inches, and then drew a line here. This other line is just to show where the other 2x4 is. Then the distance in between these two is 2, looks like 2 1/4. So that would be 1 1/8 inches down or 1 1/8 inches up from this spot right here. So if we do from that line, that's 1 1/8 inches. So I put a line here. That's going to divide this perfectly in half and put us support in the middle of the angle iron. So I'm going to come off the edge just a little bit. Just give me some wiggle room and put that in. So that's where the first hole will go. And then I need to do the same thing on the other side of this 2x4. Because remember, this is one side of the bench. And then I'll measure between those 2 points and do the same thing I did at the top. I'll keep dividing until I get below 10 inches. And then we'll measure these out and get them marked. And then drill them out. If I haven't mentioned this before, if you have any of these old DeWalt drills, DeWalt sells a little adapter that can click into it, and then you can put a lithium on it, and these work pretty well. The only problem I've ever had with them is if you leave them on the battery, if you leave these two connected, if you don't get this off of here like that, this will drain this battery. All right. The nice thing about the lithium battery is you can click a button in the back. I don't know if you can see that, but it shows you how much charge is left in it, which is really good when you're out in the field. So I'm drilling this with a number 7. Now I'm pretty good at drilling holes. If you need to, you can put a block of wood here just like we did with the tap. But I'm pretty good at keeping the drill bit straight at a 90 degree, so you probably can see right through these holes. Take a smaller bit, a lot like we did on the steel. You can drill a hole in, and now this bigger bit will follow that hole through with no effort at all. Okay, so I'll show you this again. Put the little bit in, and that's an 1/8 inch. This is a 1/4 inch. So this is like no big deal, and it will follow it straight through. So I'm going to get the rest of these done and get the steel mounted back up here. We'll start tapping that, tagging it, I should say, not tapping it. This is the rig I put together for cutting, for drilling out the angle iron. So basically, there's a 2x4 screw to the table back here that I can move back and forth so it swings like this one does. I put a piece of wood in between them and set the steel on it and pull them tight together. And the only thing I'm clamping is the steel to that center piece of wood. This way the steel I can move either direction, but it's not really holding it like securely tight, but it's holding it enough so that it's not going to roll over. So just an idea if you're trying to figure out, if you're doing this and you're trying to figure out how to keep that straight. And then down here on this side, I just have a 2x4 just to keep this up. And so most of the stuff that's holding this up is on the other side. Again, when you put these drill bits in here, make sure that they're not popping in, you know, that they're setting down in that little divot really well, and they're not just, you know, going to the side bending like that. You want them just to set down into the divot straight without bending. The divot will pull them into the hole, but we just want to make sure we don't put too much stress on it, because if you do, it could break the bit. Here I am countersinking the metal with an 82-degree countersink bit. It's a Ryobi bit, got over at Home Depot. I did not have, or I could not find, a long enough extension to hook it into my drill press. So I decided to try it with the impact drill, and surprisingly it worked really well. What I'm doing right here is I'm trying to make sure that the top of the screw fits in the countersink. It needs to be just a little bit deeper in the hole, because the top of the screw doesn't look like it, but it has some depth to it. If you don't get it perfect, once you get done drilling the 5/16 hole in, you can always increase the size of the countersink. This is the next drill bit bigger than a 5/16. It's a 21/64. On the videos that I saw that Alan Little did, he said make sure that you go one size bigger. Maybe it gives you the ability to float this thing around a little bit. I don't know. But that's what I'm doing. The nut that goes on the back is a 7/16. And this should just be a quick little tight like that. That, with the countersink on it, is really flush. So once you bore out the hole from the number 7 to 5/8, well, you do the number 7, then you countersink, then you bore out with the 5/16 drill. If your screw doesn't fit in there properly, like drop it in. If it doesn't, hit it back again with the countersink and get that level, because that'll be a really nice finish. I need to put a couple of these screws in because, as you're noticing, I don't have the table saw marked, and I did that on purpose, okay, to make sure that we would have this all in the right spot. What I'm doing here is trying to figure out how deep I need to mark the steel. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to mark the steel. So I'm taking a nut on an Allen wrench and I'm lowering the nut until I can't lower anymore, so it's on top of the steel. Then I can take my marker, put this on the other side of the steel, and figure out about 3/16 below that, like there, is where I need to, I'll mark the other one while I'm at it, but is where I need to cut the steel out. So I need to cut the steel something like this. So it looks pretty. And then I'll grind it all off and make it look real nice. If you've never used a grinding hand grinder, angle grinder, whatever there's a bunch of different words people call it. I call them angle grinders because you can grind at an angle. If you look at the inside of this, I'll take this out of here, there's a little ring, all right? This ring, 2 of the sides have round circles and 2 have Allen wrench holes. All right, I think this is like a number 6. There's a button on the back. If you push it down, you'll lock the wheel, okay? If you put the Allen wrench in here and you pull this down, you're going to tighten it. You put it on the other side, the left, you push it down, you'll loosen it, okay? And then your grinding wheel will come off. So I've got to do some grinding on the metal that we're cutting out here. This one's for masonry. If I use this on that metal, this will probably turn to dust in a couple seconds, and I might really just blow apart. If you noticed, when these things go on, they don't fit real good. There's a little gold ring. Never lose this. Goes inside, right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's right inside there, and that allows it to set on top of on this auger, okay, tighter. Then you spring your little ring back on like this, push your button in, lock it, put your Allen wrench in, and then pull it down. Now that's tight. So now you know how to use a grinder if you never did. Be careful when you're using a grinder or a Sawzall, which is a reciprocating saw, or anything that puts a lot of friction on steel. When you're using these things, that steel gets extremely hot. So before you just put your hands on it, you can literally sear the skin right off your hand if that steel gets hot. All right, as you can tell, and as you can see, this is back on the bench. Nothing is really tightened down yet because I still have to raise it up, move this back. I got to put some clamps on this, move this back to make sure that we are at our, 3/4 inch gap at the back. These things need to tighten up some. Once they all get tight, then I'll get the bottoms of this tightened down. And then we'll raise this up. The, what do you call it? The Phillips head screws in here. I don't really need to get a screwdriver on that because there's going to be enough friction with the angle of the countersink, the 82 degrees, pushing up against it as I'm turning the bolt. There's going to be enough friction. It'll just hold itself. So there's really no need to worry about that. But I just need to make sure everything's in place where it needs to be before we tighten this thing up. These two blocks will go in my toolbox forever. Just in case I ever need to take this thing back apart. Going to try to do a quick explanation of why I wanted this dream table. One, this side of my table I can cut up to 5 feet. This side I can cut up to about 4. Makes it easy to put a piece of plywood sideways and run it through. There's still 2 end tables that got to get built back here. This has got to get painted. Got to wait till the temperature comes up here in Ohio. Other than that, this is the reason that I built this. Why the Biesemeyer rail? You see how thin this aluminum is? I can hold this with one hand. This flexes, it moves. It's got a little banjo kind of spring in there that when you clamp this down and push this, it's being pressed from this side to this little point here. You hit this with a 110-pound piece of plywood, 3/4 inch. You knock it, it will move. This, on the other hand, Biesemeyer fence, has locking. I will move this table before I move this locking mechanism. T-square from very super cool tools. This is the end of the extrusion aluminum. I can hold this like right here with one hand, but I'm telling you what, it is really heavy. Got this from McMahon Car out of Cleveland. That's about it. It just is a better system by far. Slide it in, you lock it, it's done. Slide it over here, you lock it, it's done. It's not moving. hit this with a plywood, it's not moving. So that's it. If you like the video, please click like, please subscribe, hit the little alert button if you want to see the videos when they come out. Going to be, next video, it's going to be painting. Sorry guys, this one got a little longer. There's just a lot of information. See you next time you come back to the workshop.